Great. Well, welcome to Coffee with a Purpose, everyone, and welcome to our guest from the Natick Community Organic Farm. I apologize in advance. I never collected the names of the actual people that were going to be speaking to us. So perhaps we can start with you folks introducing yourselves. Actually, what we usually do is we introduce ourselves to you, so you kind of know who's around. We're already a bit into the hour. I kind of wanted to make that fairly quick. Maybe we go around and people could just ask or state, do they have any involvement or knowledge of the community farm already at MetroWorks. Martin, starting with you.
Yeah, Martin Kessel. I've been to the farm many times. I don't have any formal involvement. I love the place.
Okay.
I'm Kathleen Donovan. I'm on the library board of trustees, so I had the pleasure of working with Harriet Buckingham for many years, who had deep roots with the farm. And I visited it several times and looking forward to hearing more.
Okay.
Brinley Vickers, longtime fan of the farm and a new member of the board.
And Brinley is here live and in person.
I know.
Yeah.
I thought everybody would come today, and then I'm like the first time I'm ever in person. And I have goodies for anybody who's interested.
Exciting. All right. And then moving to online people, Pat.
Pat Conaway, Keep Natick Beautiful. Huge fan of the farm.
Great. Thanks. Rick
Devereaux, town meeting, loved the farm, loved walking through there from the trail behind. So keep up all the great work.
Great. Carrie.
Hi, good morning. Carrie Butfield, Keep Natick Beautiful, and part of Rotary, where I saw your presentation a couple months back, Casey, and thank you. Just a quick point, Leslie has joined us today. I should point out that working with Pat, she had come up with the name that switched from Coffee with Pat to Coffee with Purpose. So should we pay homage to Leslie here?
All right. Yeah. Great. Always good to know our origin story. Sally.
Hi, I'm Sally Hopkins. I'm Pat Conaway's sister, and I'm also part of Keep Natick Beautiful, and I love this group. Love to hear from the Natick Community Farm. Great,
Sally. Cindy.
Good morning. I'm not involved with the farm, but I do patronize the farm by foot and by bicycle and sometimes by car.
Cool. Leslie.
Hi, I'm Leslie Githens, and I'm a big fan of the Natick Community Organic Farm. I just recently moved back to Natick, so I'm now back in Natick after 5 years in Framingham.
Great. Anne. Yep, there she is.
Sorry, I got an airplane above my head. Natick Center resident. We go to the farm all the time, me and my son. We go to the chicken area and try to seek out that big goose, because we like to say hi and the goose says honk, and my 3-year-old loves it, just loves it.
That's awesome. Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Hanna. Love the farm. Was there just a couple weeks ago, actually, as a farmathon fundraiser, and really enjoyed my time there.
Great. And I'm Doug. I moderate this group, and man, I might have some of the least knowledge of the farm based on what everyone else has been saying, but love to hear more. I think that's pretty much everybody. So farm people. Oh, I'm sorry. Brindley already introduced herself, so great. Yeah. Who have you got there?
So I'm Nikki Wilson. I'm one of the assistant directors here at the farm.
My name is Casey. I'm the executive director here at the farm, and the person who just stepped out is Kirstie, another director at the farm in charge of the programs. So she'll be kind of coming and going as program needs arise. We just started our Monday morning programs, and so there's a lot of things need to settle into place on a typical Monday morning around here. But thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate the time and the ability to come and talk to you guys.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we really appreciate you carving valuable time out of your day. Maybe the goose will walk through at some point. So we'll leave it to you to kind of, I don't know whether you've got materials to present or just want to chat or however you want to handle it.
Yeah, we have a presentation. It's mainly photo based, but just so people can sort of
Sure.
visualize where we are. So let me see if I can share. Okay, so you're able to see the full?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, just make sure it works. Okay, so we've introduced ourselves. As Casey said, Kirstie's going to be in and out. Right now, she's in the woods sorting something out there. So we'll see her in a bit. But I'll hand over to Casey to introduce the farm and tell you a bit about our background and our mission.
Yeah, so many of you know the farm has been around for a long time. Last year we celebrated our 50th year, and so this year is our 51st year. And many of you also knew Linda Simpkins, who was the person who was in charge for 38 years. She gave us an amazing background, and the one I was really fortunate enough to spend 5 years with her, and I wish I would have soaked up even more time because she just had so much experience in those 38 years. But one thing she always told me was uphold that mission, and we uphold that mission today. And it's kind of this, I'd like to think of this confluence of education, production, and events all together. And not one can exist by itself. We all work together to make this place really, really successful. And it lives out in many, many different ways. Like it could be, a 3-year-old going to collect eggs. It could be somebody selling produce at the farm stand. It could be helping with an event. It could be teaching someone about, rocks or soils or things like that. We're going to cover a little bit of those things today here as we kind of go through. But alluding to that 51 years we've been here, this is conservation land, and we're lucky enough to steward it. So we're sitting on 27 acres here. The majority of it is kind of wooded. So one of the gentlemen kind of referred to the amazing trails that go through Natick. And so we're fortunate that we're on that loop. We have about 3 acres in vegetable flower production. And this year we're doing a pick your own operation as well, which is really exciting. The vegetables that Brindley has are from the pick your own operation. We've got about 6 to 7 acres in pasture, and then the rest is kind of dedicated to buildings and forests. But the whole vision for the place came from a gentleman, George James, back in 1974, when he realized there was a need for teens to have jobs. And so he created, I guess there was a job board somewhere in Natick, and he would post a job there and then drive his truck down to the farm and load a bunch of kids in the back and drive them down here, and they would do farm work. They would collect syrup. It started at Broadmoor originally, and then came down here in 1980. And George was really resourceful in just getting lots of free stuff. And so Linda kind of took that as well. And so she would always ask for different things. And so the Sugar Shack was just a shed, for example, that someone gave George and turned that into an experience. Since that time, we've evolved a lot. We have more programs, but we kind of continue to do the same thing where we have that education and production and events all kind of be in that same space with each other. When we think about the different enterprises essentially of the farm, the production is the one that I'm most heavily involved in. And so a lot of my time spent as the director is really great time working with a lot of the teams that we have here, working with a lot of the groups. And so, for example, in the mornings, we meet with all the program leads. We give them different jobs. They go out and do those jobs. And so the work is the education, essentially. So we talk about, this is an egg. Where does it come from? Oh, it doesn't come from a grocery store. Okay, then where does it come from? It comes from a chicken. Let's go get those eggs. Let's wash those eggs. But throughout the seasons really dictate what we do here at the farm. So you can kind of see, we've got our maple syrup operation. That kind of is the first big push that we have here at the farm. At that same time, we're starting seedlings, we're birthing animals, and then we go into our main season here. Once all those things are done, instead of juggling 5 things, we're juggling kind of 2 things: animals, vegetables, flowers. And everything kind of keeps us busy. And so whatever's going on that day, we integrate people into. So for example, if we're, that one picture on my right of just collecting pulling garlic and drying it. That's a really fun community-based activity that we do here, which will happen in about 2 weeks. We get everybody involved. We pull all the garlic, we dry all the garlic, we tie it up, we size all the garlic, we sort it. We do a lot with those different things. And we integrate as many people into it as possible. And so we really have this nice opportunity to teach people about the stuff that's going on here on a seasonal, on a daily basis as we go through the different parts of the farm here. The education, sorry, I'm coughing a little bit. The education takes many parts, many forms here. Let's see if this is Kirstie. No, it's Nikki. I'll take Kirstie's thunder a little bit. Kirstie is in charge of all of our educational programs, and we have school programs. For example, all of the Natick public schools, K-4, can come here and do one free program throughout the year. We do different school programs for Dover, Sherborne, Framingham, Boston public schools, and each of those programs is correlated to whatever's going on in their curriculum. So we have a maple syrup program, a rocks of soil program. We have a pollinator program, and that relates to those back to those mass standards. We also do after school programming, which is really critical. One thing we did a couple of years ago is we did our strategic plan, and a lot of what we heard was about like after school care. We have tons of working parents here in Natick, and they need coverage for those kids from 3 to 5. And so the kids from most Memorial School kids at this point come over, they help with chores, they go out in the woods, lots of free play. And then the biggest, kind of the other 2 big programs that we have, 3 actually, we have our Forest Gnomes program, which is a Vald kindergarten, which happens out in the woods. That's been going on for, I feel like, 20 years. Brindley was Brindley's sons were one of the first cohorts of that program. We have our homeschool program, which is really, really big now. We have probably 10 to 15 homeschool students that come throughout the year on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, and they're integrated into whatever's going on, and then they dabble their curriculum into whatever's happening here. And then the biggest one that we're kind of up to our eyeballs in right now in a very good way is our summer program season. So we do 11 weeks of summer programs. We do mornings, we do afternoons, and the kids get involved in everything from harvesting flowers to washing buckets to working with the animals. It's a big and fun time of year right now with everything that's going on here at the farm.
What's the age range for those kid programs?
So the age range for the summer program starts at 3 and goes through to teenage years. But we do have a program that goes on most of the year that's for 1.5-year-olds that come with their caregivers. It's our outdoor explore and play, and that's held throughout the year and a few times during the summer as well. So yeah.
We'll get you on the next slide. Yeah, you just walked in right at the last second, but that's okay. We'll get you on the next one.
So this is more my area. So I look after what's called internal operations. In a nutshell, that's kind of things that aren't farming or education. So in a sort of broad vision, it's events, fundraising, marketing, communications, that kind of thing. And so we have some photos here from some of our events that we held throughout the year. Some of you have probably been to a few of them or at least heard about them. But the goal is always to find as many touch points as we can with the community. So offering a wide range of events that are either free or affordable, and then we have our big fundraiser, which is a different kind of kettle of fish as well, but having lots of different touch points throughout the year, whether it's through events, whether it's through our emails, whether it's through social media, just trying to involve the community, talk to them, get them involved, and get them to see what happens here. We always like to say that we could talk about the farm until the cows come home, but it's never as good as actually here in person. And once you sort of step foot on the farm and you get the atmosphere and and you have a walk around and you chat with the staff and you see some of the kids and programs around the farm, you really kind of can't explain that. So throughout the year we start off with our Maple Magic event, which is obviously centered around a maple syrup. that we make here. And that's held at the local school here, the Memorial School. And we have anywhere between 300 to 500 people come in for a pancake breakfast. So that's a great way to kind of kick off I'd say spring, but not really. It's one of the events where people sort of come out for the first time after hibernating in the winter. And then we have our Farm Fest and Seedling Sale. So that's a big event both for the event side of things, but also for the production team. The Seedling Sale is a big day for them. And that's where it's kind of like an open day at the farm. If anyone remembers Spring Spectacular, it's kind of a similar event to that. We have our fun run. So you can see here, we've introduced a costume element to the fun run, which this year was great. We had it last year. This year, we kind of made a bigger deal of it, and we had some amazing costumes come through. It's a 5K kind of loop around the farm and the school here. People can do one loop if they want. So again, a very family-friendly event that we have in kind of early to mid-June here. Then this year we have a barn dance coming up on July 19th, which is, we've had this before, so we're bringing back this sort of popular event. So that's in a few weeks. And then our harvest dinner, which is in September, which is the kind of third photo here. You can see Casey on stage here with two of our teen workers, one apprentice and one teamwork crew lead. And this event is to raise money for those teen programs. So it's a big fundraiser coming up on the 13th of September. And we have managed to make it so far to be outside, and kind of it's in one of our pastures. It's a beautiful evening here at the farm, which is great to put on. And then we have a turkey pickup day, turkey distribution day as well in November, which we're making into a bigger event. We're having a kind of a farmer's market style day or sort of evening for that event as well, which is great. So those are the events. With fundraising, we have a kind of a collection of different ways that we fundraise. I mentioned the harvest dinner is a big one. We also have an amazing Boston Marathon runner each year. This year, we're fortunate enough to have two. The town allocates those bibs to us, so we're very grateful to receive those. We have some runners in the Falmouth Road Race. We will have a yearly annual appeal that launches at the end of October. And then there's other grant applications and things that the team does as well throughout the year, just to help with costs at the farm. So that's the community events and fundraising bit. So. In terms of impact, we have numbers. You can see here at the side some of the things from 2024 that we achieved. But the kind of thing I want to draw your attention to is actually the photograph that we have here. So this is one of our community lunches, and I think this is an element of the impact that, again, you can't see it written down. You kind of have to be at the farm here to experience it. So every Thursday we have a community lunch, and this is where it's a potluck lunch style, and this is one of them it's probably last year, maybe the year before actually, where a lot of people come and join us. We have a cookie competition at the end of the year. This week we have a pie competition on Thursday. So we have these events where, again, it's pulling people in. The people sat around these tables are staff members, volunteers, board members. We have teens that came through the programs and have now come back and are joining us for these lunches when they're back for vacation. So this, again, the sort of element of community is really kind of the thread that runs through everything that we do. I've mentioned most of these already, so I will skip over these. But as I said, barn dance on July 19th and harvest dinner on the 30th of September are the two events that are coming up, and hopefully we'll see some of you there.
You want a chance to speak? We lost you for the education part.
Sure, yeah. So my name is Kirstie Beaton. I'm the Assistant Director for the Education Program. Today was day one of our week 4 of summer program, so that's why I was off and about, just making sure all the groups are up and running. So I guess so I started here last year, and when I first started, I think that was pretty much when we got started with the Appleseed project. So I've been a part of that for this full year. And so when we talk about our strategic plan, these are our goals for future, what we're doing in the next 1 to 2 years, 5 years, 10, 20 years. When it comes to what we want for our education programs, what we want for our infrastructure, what we want for our animals and what those buildings look like. So we've got listed some of our different projects we've got going on and how we're also stretching what types of audiences we're serving and when we can do programs and getting new people to come to the farm. So one of the big ones that we've been working on in terms of the Appleseed project is creating some new buildings, one of them being an education pavilion. So if you come here, like this morning, we've got 70 kids on site. Which is a lot of kids, and we're kind of small. We're working with some limited spacing. So one thing we would like is a centralized location that we can use year round for education, especially on days where it's raining or we've got multiple field trips coming on site. And we can also use it for our events that we have throughout the year. We can use it for other things like birthday parties that we have on the weekends. So just something that is centralized, usable throughout the year, usable for all the different people who are coming through, usable for visitors who are just coming by and maybe want to use it for a picnic location. We also have the animal hut. Do you want to talk about the animal husbandry building?
Sure. Yeah. So
Cindy has a hand up. Did you want to ask a question, Cindy?
What does Appleseed permaculture mean?
Sure.
Yeah. So Appleseed, so it's a business, and what they do is they come and they basically survey the entire property and they help you with long-term planning. So we've looked at everything from our buildings and our infrastructure to fields and soil and how water moves throughout the property and what's going to happen with climate change and stormwater runoff and how we're going to address that in different areas on the farm. So they're really looking at everything that we do and how we can make changes to best use the property and its buildings over time, but also taking into account what we want and what our goals are. So we've been working with them to develop long-term plans for all of those different pieces.
Yeah, we received a grant from Middlesex Savings Bank to work with Appleseed, which we were very grateful for.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I was wondering if it had to do with apples and seeds, but
we're not going to be growing apples anytime soon.
So one of the things that Linda was amazing at kind of responding to the need at that time, just saying like, we need this and let's put up this piece of infrastructure. Something we're looking at is being a little more proactive and saying like, looking at our strategic plan and saying, okay, within our strategic plan, we do have some aging infrastructure that we need to address. And so rather than just saying like, let's put it there, Connor from Appleseed Permaculture was really great. And he used part of the survey we had from the barn. We did some staff meetings. The picture that you see there was a really amazing opportunity where we brought in Mike Downey, who's the guy in the orange there, he was here back in the day when they were just getting paid $1 an hour. And so you have his perspective combined with Isla, who's one of our current apprentices, who's 12 this year. And so in those types of meetings, we were able to have these really awesome feedback opportunities to say, like, this is what the farm was. And Isla was there saying, this is what we're doing now, and trying to hear all those bits of feedback and understand how we can place those pieces of infrastructure on the horizon, the landscape, that still fits the mission, but still is, respectful of the past and thinking about the future all at the same time. The pavilion's one of those, and the husbandry building is one of those as well. Thinking about safe spaces for our animals, the people who use those spaces, and thinking about kind of what type of animals people here want. The mission does really talk about food, and so the animals here at the farm do have that capacity to become food. And so when we have people here, they look at turkeys and someone might say, well, why do you have turkeys? Well, we have a holiday called Thanksgiving, right? And so let's talk about where food comes from. It comes from here. We can humanely raise these animals. We can have kids take care of them, talk about, you know, how to take care of them properly. All of it kind of works together into that big infrastructure plan, which then relates back to the mission.
Can I ask about the barn? Feel free to defer this to later if you want, but you know, just where that beam right in the foreground says anonymous, I assume that means that that was part of a donation to rebuild the barn. I remember when the old barn burned, from a outsider's view, it seemed almost kind of catastrophic. And oh my gosh, how can the farm recover? And the outpouring of donations and support, again, from an outsider's view, seemed wow. People are really behind this and want it to succeed. What is there a story you can tell us there about, you know, what happened with that whole thing? Or
Yeah, I can definitely tell. St. Patty's Day will kind of live in infamy in my brain because that's the day that it happened. It was St. Patty's Day 2021. So it was a really tough time during that time period. There was COVID was, I think, just starting. I forget, actually. COVID was a tough time for everybody, and it's kind of like bled over 2 years or something like that. But I think COVID was just starting, and then we lost the barn, and it was catastrophic. You're completely right. How do you replace the history of a 200-year-old barn, right? That was just priceless. The silver lining of that entire thing, I would say, is that the community was able to give and raise enough money to support the reconstruction of the entire barn. And so there were folks like, you know, twins that live on South Street who gave us all the money from the piggy bank, you know, which was like $3 or something like that, going all the way up to the organization on the anonymous thing, which gave $200,000, right? And so it spanned this huge distance of small contributions, big contributions. But I think the silver lining of losing the barn and building it was that it kind of showed the value of the farm and how it relates back to this community of people. And now looking at this current barn, it does give us a lot of capacity, which we didn't have before, and a lot of like safety things that we were always hopeful for in the old barn, but this new barn has. And so it seems so distant from like thinking when we had that barn, and now like some of the features we have for the barn just kind of made our lives a lot easier. I wouldn't wish to go back and have that fire again, but I think it definitely showed how important the farm is to the community here in Natick.
were there educational experiences even in, I remember hearing, oh, you know, the barn raising is happening this weekend or something. Were there opportunities to even do public education almost about structures themselves as part of building the new one?
Yeah, so we were very fortunate that we had a local contractor who donated all of his time in terms of GCing the entire project, and then he kind of farmed out a lot of the individual work to some folks who do a lot of work in Dover Sherborne. The frame itself came from a firm in upstate New York. So that was one of the big ones that happened. And that was really fun because like we were on our social media, for example, we were saying like the crane's coming today, the frame's going up. And we had the fence up, obviously for safety reasons. But we were still able to have people like a viewing party essentially. So you could come and watch the whole frame go up. And the frame went up in about 2.5 days. It was very, very fast. And then, yeah, throughout the entire experience, we planned a little bit ahead, and we knew that we didn't want to limit people from still visiting the animals and seeing the property. So the teams the summer before built a pasture walk, which kind of was like an avenue to get from the bottom of the property all the way to the top. And that was a way for people to kind of see what was going on while still visiting the rest of the property. So while construction was going on.
Thank you.
Well, I'll continue talking. Yes, so just going down more along with our strategic planning. We talk a lot about community engagement, offering different programming. Something that we started in the last year were what we call farm discovery days. So part of that came from wanting to provide opportunities on weekends for families kids of different ages to come and do something on a Saturday morning. So what those look like, we have teen volunteer groups on the Saturdays. We offer programming for younger students and their caregivers. We started a new series called Family Nature Crafts. We've got a teacher who's very crafty, very creative, and she's always coming up. She's always weaving together flower crowns and creating her own dyes. And so we turned that into a program series for families. And they've been pretty popular, I would say. And it's really nice coming on a Saturday and just seeing all the different programs going on. There've been some adult programs running on those days, learning about backyard chickens was one. We had a lot of people come for that. We held some free play out in the woods. If you've ever been out to our Gnomes Playscape, it's just a really nice forest playscape out there, made with all different natural materials where kids can go and just be creative and play. So that's part of what we've been doing on the weekends, Discovery Days. Casey's been running the Pick Your Own operation, so that's something new this year. And he talks a lot about the folks who have come to go out there, grab the baskets. They're learning how to pick beets and garlic scapes and lettuce and herbs, and just being able to just talk to those people as they're out there, wondering, where they came from, what they're up to, what are they interested in, and just having those different conversations that we don't necessarily get to have all the time. Or that just a different part of the farm where we can bring them to, and they can also do that learning piece of, this is what's growing here, this is how we care for it, this is how you harvest it, this is what a beet looks like before you find it on your salad. Something like that, yeah. So something else we've been doing that's been really exciting for me, we've been offering some night hikes, which has been a lot of fun. And I mentioned those just because what's interesting about those programs is it's a very intergenerational crowd. We've got, families that come with young kids. We've got young adults that are just coming with their friends. We've had, older folks coming out just to enjoy the farm in a totally different setting. We always have a topic, but we're taking, we take them out in the woods. It's dark. It's just a very different way to experience the property. And, it's great. It's great hearing them ask their questions and be really engaged in what we're doing. So that's part of different types of programming we've been trying to offer our community. Yeah. And then do you want to talk about your branding and website?
Yeah, this is a relatively quick one, but again, as part of the strategic plan that was finished in late 2023, we're looking at ways to increase awareness of the farm. We're always a bit surprised when we're at the Natick Farmers Market, for example, and people come over and they say, where's the farm? We haven't heard of the farm. And that happens we were at Natick Nights last week as well, and we had a number of people say the same thing. And so, we're conscious of, even though we've been here for a long time, there's people moving in and out of the local kind of neighborhoods, and we just want to make sure people can come here. It's a free resource that families can come and spend the morning here. They can walk around and they have this amazing space that they can come and visit. So increasing awareness of the farm includes, we talked about events earlier. Also we have outreach events. So we're things like today, also going to local schools and having a table there, Natick Nights, Natick Days. So we have lots of outreach. We kind of try and get to as many things as we can, and kind of get the visuals out there and meet people and encourage people to come and visit us. And then that also includes our like online sort of presence as well. So for anyone that was interested or looking at it, we did change our branding in the last year, and then that also included a new website. So and then all of that kind of filters through to other like communications and things that we've been sending out there. So yeah, it's all part of our strategic plan as we move forward. So, and I think that's all we had planned to share with you. But very happy to hear any questions or to talk about any particular area that that folks are interested in. Please, we're here, and ears open.
Great.
Yes.
There are questions there at Metroworks. Perhaps you can stop the screen share now, and then we can see you folks a little bit better too. Martin,
yeah,
folks there?
question. And Brinley has a question too.
Yeah.
But it's a virtual hand, not a real hand. That's kind of funny. So used to that. Yeah, okay, anyway, yeah, Martin Kessel, I said I had no official connection to the farm, and I actually, that's probably not true because as chair of the Open Space Committee in Natick, we were involved in the protection of the property. It was always an open space goal from the time our committee was formed in 2001, and about 10 years later, with the support of the town administrator, it actually got transferred to the Conservation Commission. But one of the compromises that was made at that point was the question of how to fund some positions that were in the Rec and Park Department. And for a while, the Conservation Commission, as an exchange for getting the property, was helping with funding. And I don't know how it left out, but I know there's always been a dynamic in terms of being run by a nonprofit and most of the decisions made by the nonprofit, but also having affiliation with the town in terms of, I think, the Rec and Park Department usually. And sometimes positions being funded by Rec and Park. So I guess that's a long-winded question, but what is the dynamics of the interplay between the nonprofit corporation that runs the farm and the town? I also have seen, public works trucks there, so I know that there's support from the town in other ways as well. So what's the dynamics between the nonprofit and the town of Natick?
Sure, I can handle that one. So there's a lease between the nonprofit and the town, specifically the Conservation Commission, which extends until 2044. And for a lot of years, even before I got here, there were small little leases, 3-year leases, which kind of, got that relationship along. And I believe in it was right before I got here. They made that lease, which was a 30-year lease. So that lease will go until 2044. The land itself is owned by the Conservation Commission. And so we report to the Conservation Commission once a year. So we report to Matt, and the other CONCOM members about what we've done that past year, what we hope to be doing the next year. The farm is also a part of the Community Services Department. And so Community Services includes Veteran Services, Council on Aging, ourselves, and Rec. So Rec is nested within Council on Aging. I know it used to be that Rec was in charge of all of those things, but now Rec is nested within Community Services. And we really enjoy looking for ways to create partnerships here with those other departments, not only, like, for example, one of the things that we do with the Community Services Department is we do a Community Senior Share Program. And so where we see these natural overlaps, we look for opportunities to kind of work together. So we grow the produce, Grace organizes the volunteers then take the senior CSA shares out to people's houses. We also work with the DPW, so our FLIRD, which is made up of our goats and our sheep, they are here, there, and then eventually they're going to be going up to the water tower off Union Street to do some goatscaping. That helps that crew, they don't have to do any mowing, helps with poison ivy control, invasive control, things like that. And so when possible, we look for those opportunities to kind of work across different departments within town. But Martin, you are correct. It is a town nonprofit partnership. And so there are certain folks who work for the town and certain folks who work for the nonprofit. And yes, as part of the lease too, it stipulates certain things like we're very fortunate. I'm going to say the nonprofit is very fortunate that the town does provide a vehicle and does provide things like recycling and garbage pickup and things like that. And so we're fortunate that those services are here to help the nonprofit.
So I know, thanks. I know Brinley's got her hand up, but I have a question that kind of relates to that. So maybe I'll jump in. It's a question I often ask of groups that come and visit us is, do you have peers that you can collaborate with? This model, just the organic farm in the first place, it being a nonprofit, this relationship with the town, how unique is this in the world? Are there other farms in the area that you can trade ideas with, or are you guys figuring this all out on your own?
I'll start by saying that a couple years ago I did some research and figured out that there's a few, like on a single hand, town-run farms across the country. And so I think it's pretty rare. It's kind of like a unicorn, someone once called it. That's not to say that there aren't nonprofits that work on conservation land. So for example, Land Sake Farm, which is up in Weston, operates on conservation land. So it's owned by the town of Weston, but they run the land essentially on behalf of the Conservation Commission. But it's not necessarily a part of the town, it's more kind of like adjacent essentially. With that said, yes, there are other people. We're also a part of a farm-based education group, which is made up of different farm-based education farms from, say, like Concord all the way down to Cohasset. And so we meet probably quarterly to talk about different things. It could be everything from what's your heat policy to what programs are you doing for after school to what's your policy on this. And so it's a nice chance for the administrators from those different farms to kind of get together to kind of share different ideas, what that's like, whatever the best practices essentially. Yeah, things on that.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I'd add is that unique piece. I mean, quite often the feedback from those other farms is like, wow, what a great partnership that is. You know, being able to work with the town in the way that we are, is, yeah, it's unusual, and it's rare, and often from the outside, other farms looking at us, they kind of go, wow, that's really cool. So that's my take on it.
Cool. So Brinley, I jumped in front of you. What did you want to add?
All good. You guys didn't talk about CSAs or the market on Saturday or the market at the community center on Tuesdays. And so I was wondering if maybe you want to do some little plugs about that.
Sure. So I will say that we have like products, and then we have like tangible products. And Linda would always say that our best product is our educational programs, and that's like, I'll get to your point here in a second, Bradley, but I think the way that we grow beautiful lettuce and beets and dill and kale and Brussels sprouts and things like that. And we have a flower CSA and a veg CSA and a senior CSA, and we do a farmer's market, and we do a farm stand. We do some wholesale accounts. We do a lot of different things. And then through that medium, which is growing food, we teach people about different things. And sometimes it could be the technical side of things. It could be, hey, this is how you harvest this lettuce, or this is what it's going to bolt. But the softer metric associated with that is the metric of getting to know people, whether it's volunteers or whether it's kids, and getting a chance to kind of hear what's going on in their lives. And I talk a lot about kind of the agricultural therapy that happens here. People come here for a variety of different reasons. Some people want to become a farmer. It's happened once, maybe twice since I've been here. But most people just come here because they want to be around other community-minded people, and they want to talk, and they want to see what's going on, and they want to be out in the sun, they want to get their hands dirty. And people come here for a variety of different reasons, and we receive them however they want to be received. Some people are here to grow, some people are here to grow stuff, some people are just here, you know. And either way, whatever we grow, essentially the tangible stuff, we grow people at the same exact time.
Cool. Brinley, does that address everything you wanted them to address, or should we move on to Rick?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Rick? Rick, you're on mute. You got to come off mute.
Sorry, this is a question I almost hate to ask, but I imagine it's a question that gets raised occasionally by visitors or somebody else. But yeah, are there any issues with disease? Both, I mean, certainly, you know, plant disease is ubiquitous, but with animal disease or with chickens, or people ask about bird flu, and, you know, what is there an educational opportunity there for people who are, you know, just not really following those issues?
Oh, totally. Man, if think about like a system where there's so many variables that are out of your control, right? So when you think about just produce in general, like they say, let's just say there's a pie chart, and you've got a third of the produce gets to people, a third of the produce might just never make it to people, and then a third of the produce might like just linger off somewhere there for fungal reasons or disease reasons, or we've got a serious rabbit problem this year, like rabbits are everywhere. So like that's a pest. We have fungal issues on that side. I would say one of the things that we don't shy away from is really like talking about those issues though, and saying like this morning when I was talking to the teens, I was like, can't harvest this lettuce because the rabbits chewed it all for the weekend, it's just gone, right? And so that conversation of, well, now what do we do with it? In our cases, we feed it to our animals. But when the things like avian bird flu did come around, we were really thoughtful about talking to people about it and saying, this is something that's being tracked. Some measures that we're going to take here is we had some foot baths out with some mild bleach water, and people had to like dip their feet in there and then walk through. And that helped kind of prevent that spread for people who are coming and going from wherever, right? People come and go. So biosecurity is a really big issue on the animal side. Even when we receive new animals, like we have 2 new sheep that just came, they go into quarantine for 7 to 14 days because they're coming from another farm, and we don't want them to introduce things into our other animals essentially. And so that's a really important thing that we talk about. We talked about it with the educators this morning. Is we said you're not allowed to go in with these new animals. They need time to adjust and get used to our system. Make sure you tell the kids that this is why they're not allowed to touch them for 7 to 14 days. And so it was funny when we went through the permaculture workshop with Connor, and he was talking about like the buildings here, and he said, do you want to hide this fact? And we said, no, we want to tell people about these things. We want to tell people about the disease. We want to tell people about these systems. We want to tell people about where their food comes from. We want to tell them about what goes wrong, what goes right. Like farming is like a very messy, uncontrolled endeavor where sometimes you just go. Linda always was really famous for going, it is what it is, and like you just have to accept it sometimes and just move forward. And we accept whatever we're given, and we try to teach people about it and do our best to, in some cases, control it, but in some cases you just have to let go.
Well, thank you. I have a follow-up that I'll get to in a second, but I wanted to offer a red-tailed hawk that's right around us that has already cleaned out most of the rabbits. And now he's looking, I keep vegetables sometimes on my deck outside. I was sitting out there last week with my brother who was visiting and my wife having lunch. And it's a small deck. And a red-tailed hawk came and sat about 3 feet from the produce that I had on a table in the sun, and just kind of looked at it. And then, he stayed there for 15 seconds or so before he caught me looking at him and sort of aghast, like, good Lord. So, if we could relocate that fellow, I'd be happy. But, I have noticed your walkthroughs and stuff, and I appreciate what you were saying. The follow-up question is just about, for those of us who don't really know, what is this? Is it much more tricky to do organic farming growth, and much more costly to do that? And do you lose a higher percentage of your crop? I mean, just a quick 60-second 101 on organic farming for people who say, well, what does that mean? I can't really answer it other than I'm sure you don't use harmful pesticides and fertilizers and stuff like that. But
yeah, so give me 120 seconds on that, because that's a big issue. So we have 2 certifying agents that we belong to. One is the USDA owns the word organic, and they basically farm out the certification work to third parties. Our third party is Bay State Certifiers. They're based in Dighton. We fill out a huge ream of paper for them, everything from like where a seed's coming from to where's this coming from. They do an inspection every single year. We're also a part of the Real Food Project. The Real Food Project was a spawn for people who didn't believe that the USDA should be certifying hydroponic entities. So Real Food Project is soil based only. The USDA is soil and hydroponic. Even though it is organic. The USDA sends me a book every single year of like this thick of all the organic pesticides and herbicides that you can use. We don't do any of those things. So our approach with organic, it is more difficult because you have to do things like mechanical controls like row covers or timing out your plantings. It means that we focus more on soil health. And so we do a soil test every 2 years. We see what we're missing. Typically, we're missing calcium. Our soils are always low in calcium. We use our compost system. So think of it like a big system. When we clean out the chicken house, it has wood chips and manure. That goes into the compost. We add our soil amendments. It cooks for 9 months, gets to 160 degrees. Then that compost goes back onto the field. And then that compost provides the nutrients for the plants. And so we don't want to be adding extra things because I don't understand a lot about soil biology, because if you take a teaspoon of soil, it has something like 3 million microbes in it. Right? There's no way the human mind can comprehend what's going on in soil. So I do my best to try to mimic what nature does. And we use a system here called no-till, which we basically just add compost every year, add our soil amendments, and then we don't till at all. And that creates a really strong microbial environment, which then funnels those nutrients towards the plants and hopefully makes a stronger plant. It doesn't mean that everything works out all the time. It definitely does not. And but we try our best in that case. We don't use any of the pesticides. We don't use any of the herbicides. We add our soil amendments, and that's basically it. We let the compost do the work and the biology do the work, because my brain just isn't big enough to understand what's going on in soil.
Thank you. That's great. And the word hydroponic, I'll look it up so you don't have to spend time explaining that one, because I've always wondered.
I'll tell you, hydroponic. So if you go to the grocery store and you buy Driscoll's is a big company, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries.
Yeah.
All of those things are hydroponically grown.
Okay.
So there's a lot of folks in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. The old timers said, you can't be growing things in a soilless medium. It's not the same. It doesn't create the same quality product. It's all of that stuff is hydroponically grown. And so they started the Real Food Project to basically as a rebuttal against the word organic. So you have some amazing growers here in New England who don't believe in the word organic. You could spend 60 minutes talking about that, maybe even 6 days, It's a big.
Okay, so it was the USGA, and then the other organization that was you're certifying with was what?
It's called the Real Food Project.
Real Food. Okay, thank you.
Real Food Project is soil-based only. The US hydroponic and soil-based.
Okay, thank you.
So Rick, I'll just chime in real quick because I think, so people, maybe you don't, hydroponics means water-based instead of soil-based. So they're basically growing them in water instead of in soil, or more water than soil.
Okay, got it. I've heard that before. Thank you. That's good.
Yeah. Cindy, you've been very patient. What would you want to?
So, another question came up and now I forgot that, but I do want to tell you that in 2 weeks, another farm is going to come and speak with us. They're coming remotely and it's not going to be recorded, but it's called All Farmers. And the reason I remembered to invite you about this is when you talked about farm therapy, agrotherapy, and they recently have an arrangement where local physicians are actually prescribing people to go and work at their farm, which is really, they're so proud of that. And essentially, so All Farmers is a nonprofit in the Springfield area. They have farms in the area, and the people who work the farm are all immigrants. And there's a contingent from Southeast Asia and another contingent from Africa and different parts of the world, and they have their own local farmers markets. And it's a pretty amazing thing. So if you have time available in 2 weeks, starting at 9 o'clock, it won't be recorded. So that would be a chance to, for at least one of you to learn more about All Farmers.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. One thing I've always been trying to do is work with Paul Carew over at Veteran Services to have some veterans come down here. We've just been missing each other, but that is one of my reach goals, to get veterans down here for agricultural therapy. Yeah,
when you were saying earlier that there's no predicting what's going to happen at any given day at the farm, and you just kind of have to take what happens. That seems like it could just be a real life lesson in in that, having nothing to do with farming.
Yeah, and I think that we have the teamwork crew and the apprenticeship programs are two of the paid work opportunities that we have here for teenagers, and that is, you know, Casey talks about education being our biggest crop, and the fact that actually most of those kids aren't going to end up being farmers, but the things that they learn are like coming in the morning and realizing that maybe what they did yesterday, like the rules have changed or the guidelines have changed, and having to be like, oh, what's the solution now, and kind of that resilience and going, okay, well, we need to pivot and do something different. And so when we talk to the teens kind of after their, you know, towards the end of their programs, those are the things that they talk about. It's like, oh, I learned how to like think differently. I learned how to be within a team and, you know, problem solve, and yeah, kind of dealing with those things. But oh, the weather's not what it said it was going to be. Now what do we do? So, yeah, those are the key things that come out of it.
Cool. Do other folks have questions, comments, input?
Well, back to the rabbits. Sorry, I haven't noticed a lot of rabbits there. Are they in quarantine for a while or what? It seems like it's been lean for rabbits in the cages and the hutches.
You know, these are wild rabbits. These aren't domesticated rabbits. So it's funny because at the seedling sale, someone always comes to me and they say, what do you do for chipmunks? And I'll be like, I've never had a chipmunk problem. And then I'll be like, next year, what do you do for rabbits? I'll be like, I've never had a rabbit problem. I said that last year. Now we have a rabbit problem. So, so I think it's all cyclical though. So I see you'll have the kids out in the field and they'll look at that scat and like, what's that scat? And so you'll see lots of fox scat this year. So I think the rabbit population is rising. I think the fox population is trying to catch up to it. And so I've seen so much fox scatter out I haven't seen in recent years. So it's just, everything's a little delayed. So I think the rabbits will probably be placed stacked maybe next year, something like
right. But the domestic ones, the domestic rabbits that are usually in the hutches, you usually have a lot of them. And maybe they're just hiding out inside because of the heat or something. I just haven't seen many this year. Are they back?
They are back. Yeah, okay. Haley, our livestock manager, was rebuilding all of the hutches, so they were kind of moved around a little bit.
Okay.
They're finishing the hutch project this summer with the help of the teens.
Okay. Important information for my grandchildren. That's good. Thank you.
Where so much of the work of the farm is done by volunteers, how do you handle the challenge of how many volunteers you have from week to week or season to season? Is that pretty well controlled, or is that just a way you have to adapt to what can get done and what can't get done based on who shows up?
Yeah, I'll speak to the day-to-day, and Nikki can talk a little bit about the event side of things. So I've been here for about like 10, 12 years. And so it's interesting kind of watching volunteerism throughout Natick. Like pre-COVID, volunteerism was bigger. And I think at that time we had the equivalent of like 4 full-time people here. COVID changed things a lot. And so I know other departments across town have also seen like a drop in volunteerism. Besides the senior center, I know they still have a very strong volunteer group over there. So we're now somewhere around like 2 FTEs a year. And we're very, very thankful for the volunteers that do show up. We have them come on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, morning and afternoon shift. And again, it's that point of we could probably be doing it faster by ourselves, but that's not why we exist as an organization. We exist to teach people about where their food comes from and integrate them into it. And so part of our job on the production side is to, plan out our day and say, we've got these folks coming. This person's really great at the livestock. This person's really amazing at flower bouquets. And how do we integrate people into what's happening? Because that's really our job. It's to take the skill level and match it to a job, because there's always a job for everybody here at the farm. So how do we match people to their skills, to their interests? And we just accept whoever's here and use their skills essentially. On the event side, we use volunteers as well.
Yeah, so we have a member of our team called Emily, and she oversees all of the volunteering like applications. So online, people can express an interest in volunteering, and then she'll meet with them, talk to them about the interests and things like that. So we have our kind of regular weekly volunteers. We have people that come in at like more of a one-off basis. We have some corporate groups that come in, you know, for an afternoon. A group of 15 will come in and help us for an afternoon. So we plan those out. The team know they're coming and they can kind of plan their tasks around that. And then for a lot of our events, just take the Harvest Dinner, for example, we have anywhere between 30 and 40 volunteers that help put on that evening. So at sometime beginning of August, I'll send out a note to all of the volunteers, and we'll ask people to sign up if they're available and if they'd like to help. So we also have those more like one-off opportunities for folks to get involved as well. And they, you know, a lot of our events, we simply couldn't do them without volunteer support. It's incredibly useful for us to have extra people there to help, and you know, they know what they're doing, they know the farm, they're interested, they're passionate, and it's great to have them at events and help us put those on. So yeah.
Cindy, you had your hand up again.
Yes, I remembered my question. It came from the talking about no-till, and what does that mean in terms of, so that to me that means kind of at the beginning you put down your stuff and then you plant the seeds, but then the weeds grow, and how do you deal with that? All your volunteers are doing that, or what do you do?
Sure. So I'll say that weeding is a part of farming. And
yes.
I will say some of the best community times I've had here are related to mundane things that we do, whether it's cleaning out the chicken house or weeding, because it's slow time. And I feel like in the world that we live in, everything is so fast, and weeding forces you to slow down. So weeding is a part of what we do here. But the value of no-till, so if we look at tillage versus no-till system, agriculture is one of the biggest contributors to climate change. So when you till soil, you're sending tons of carbon into the atmosphere, right? So it's interesting that agriculture can be both the solution and the problem at the same exact time. So the no-till system that we do is based on this guy, Brian O'Hara, who's down in Connecticut. And the system starts with this idea that we want to keep the carbon in the soil. We want to keep the biology intact. When you till, it's genocide. You're killing all the biology. And so we want to keep everything in the soil. We want to keep the carbon in the soil. We want to keep the biology in the soil. We make our own compost. If we're starting with fresh, kind of just soil, we put compost on top. We either direct seed into that, so we take the seeds and shake it in, or we plant our plants right into it. And that 3 to 4 inches of compost is enough to stop a lot of the weed pressure, so we don't have to weed as much. So there are some people who come and they look at me and they go, "Where are the weeds?" I'm like, "They're gone for the week." And they're like, "What do you mean? I came to weed." I was like, "Well, then go someplace else, you know." But the no-till is also great because when you start thinking it from a biological perspective, when you're keeping that biology intact, you're creating stronger networks. Your mycorrhizal fungi are going to go out. That biology is going to feed the fungi, which are then going to feed into the plants, which are then going to create stronger plants. And you have this whole system of nutrients moving from the plant to the roots to your biome, and then back and forth. When you till, you basically kill all those bacteria and things like that. So you're starting with just dead soil. So a lot of those folks who till are then forced to put chemical fertilizers back on to simulate the nutrients you would have to get. And so I'm not going to say that we don't have weeds. We definitely have weeds, but it helps with our educational process to say we do this system, and at the scale that we grow at, we're able to do that system. I'm not sure it's replicable on a huge scale. I know a lot of people, like where I grew up in Pennsylvania, do no-till, but it's a chemical and then drill presses and things like that, which is slightly better for the soil, I guess. But our scale is very human-based, not machine-based.
Yeah.
And we're very fortunate that we can integrate a lot of people into it. And so I love spreading compost. I love, it's one of those jobs you don't have to think about, and you can engage people while you do it. And so good conversation always happens around weeding.
Could you repeat the name of the man in Connecticut?
Sure. So he wrote a book, and it's called No Till Farming, and his
Okay.
name is Brian O'Hara.
Ryan O'Hara. Okay.
Super
I
great.
happen to be in Connecticut here at a place where we have a family place, and there's a great big vegetable garden. And my brother comes with it. It's not a machine. It's not a gasoline powered, but it's a hand tiller, and he just goes down all the rows, and because it's quick, right?
Yeah.
But I'm maybe I'll buy him the book or something.
But, you know,
It's just the way you say it that way, that the carbon is just going to the wind. That's something that got my ears perked up in a way that I hadn't really understood no-till before. Because I know my mom did a volunteer thing. I think it was in Lincoln or Sudbury or Concord, and she came back and was like, "Wow, they do this no-till thing," and so it's kind of intriguing. Thank you.
Yeah.
as you were explaining the science of that, you might have answered this earlier in the presentation and I missed it, but do you have partnerships or communications with any of the local colleges where the students might be studying agricultural techniques and science that helps you stay connected with the latest and greatest theories, but almost maybe also provides lab environments for some of those places?
You're shaking your head, go for it.
Well,
Like
I mean,
everything's
it's
going
I know a lot of these questions are farming related. One thing we do at the moment is it's not quite lab based. I think that's more the question that you're asking, but we work with Keith Tech, so Keith Technical School, and we work with their co-op students. So they have a horticultural program, and so for the last 2 years, we've been able to have a senior and a junior join us as part of their co-op program. So they bring what they're learning at their school into what they're doing here, and they can take what they're learning here into their program as well. That's the kind of the main like day-to-day connection that we have with a local school. But we do occasionally have questions, and people reach out asking about doing research. Testing plants, is that right?
Yeah, so people want to, because we're a certified organic farm, people want to come and like study our soil and study our plants. And so a couple groups we've worked with, UMass Boston, they sent researchers last week to look at pollinators that were on our squash plants. And they've come a couple years in a row to see like which pollinators are here, in what frequency, concentration. They've been coming for a couple of years. We used to work with a organization called the Bionutrient Food Association, and it was kind of a spawn off of NOFA Mass. NOFA is an organization that's kind of all over the place. This one's Northeast Organic Farming Association, and the BFA, Bionutrient Food Association, was a spawn off, and basically they were saying food is medicine. Let's grow nutrient dense food rather than the food you get from the grocery store, which is grown for shipping purposes or aesthetics purposes. Let's grow food for quality, right? And so we worked with the BFA for 2 years where we were sending different samples back to this lab in Michigan, and they were looking at different sucrose levels, like sugar levels, to see, does the practice match the quality of the produce essentially. And so there's a couple different metrics they looked at. One was organic, one was do you cover crop, one was do you do no-till, irrigation was a big factor. And surprisingly, organic practice didn't contribute to the highest nutrient density. Two different issues, cover cropping and no-till, were greater contributors of nutrient density than using organic practices.
Do you think that, can I ask a question about that? Because
Sure.
I'm always curious about that part. Do you think that is because of the way the US deems organic and how they're doing it, meaning that there are so many things that are maybe not the best organic practices that are a part of the organic part that makes that happen? Because organic doesn't necessarily include the no-till and the cover cropping, that you can be organic without those two things. So do you think that that's part of why they were finding those results?
Yeah, definitely. So you can be organic, but then you can till the soil, right? And so if they were if I remember the different graph, I'm trying to remember the different metrics that were there. You could be organic, but then till the soil, so then you're killing your biology, so then the nutrient density is going to be lower, right? Or you could be certified organic, but then you could be spraying pesticides that would kill your biology, or herbicides or things like that. And so organic wasn't the driver for nutrient density. It was more so practice. And are you keeping your soil covered? Right? Imagine you're not covering your soil for 14 days. You know, your biology needs that photosynthesis in the soil in order to be healthy. And if you're tilling it, if you're leaving it like burned out or like long periods of time with nothing growing there, that's going to have a big impact on your biology, which is going to have a big impact on your plants. And so I think even though everyone says, oh, organic, it must be better, it's definitely a step. And I'm not saying that organic is a bad thing. I definitely think it's a great step, but you have to partner it with other things to get the biggest bang for your buck.
So I know this isn't part of you guys, but I put in the chat there, I have some pretty good friends who do large scale farming in Costa Rica, and they're a part of a group called the Carbon Underground. So I put the link in there. And I think that if anybody is actually really curious about exploring this topic, really going in depth to explore this topic, the Carbon Underground is a fantastic website and organization and group that has been working really hard towards helping to understand and explain these differences in farming, and why the no-till and the regenerative farming and all of that are so much healthier for our environment and for creating the food that we eat. So if anybody's interested, I put that link in there.
Thank you. So I want to be mindful of the time, but as usual, as we zero in on 10:30, everybody's hands go up. So Rick and, well, Cindy's actually lowered her hand, and Sarah's got a question. Oh, Rick lowered his hand. Yeah, Rick.
So I just curious about the that research that you were just talking about, Casey. Is there a paper, and if so, can you send a link or the description of it to Doug so he could share it afterwards?
Yeah, I will send the kind of the infographic piece to Brinley, since I have Brinley's email, and then Brinley to everybody else.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. That's really cool.
Great. Sarah.
So I just had also a quick follow-on question on that study. It sounds really interesting. And I'm a geologist, and, you know, details of sampling earth materials are of interest to me. And I was just wondering, it seems to me like you would have to try to tease out, is it organic? Is it no-till? All the different factors. I'm just wondering, did they have some background sampling of land that wasn't under agriculture but was nearby, just to kind of tease out sort of what's going on locally, what's the baseline that might have nothing to do with farming?
Well, I don't know whether there was, we definitely did soil samples, I do know that. And it was interesting because it was a national study from different farms all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I do remember that the geology impacted the soil quality.
I know what I found so I did hazardous waste site cleanup, so something very different. But when you talked about the calcium being your main nutrient that you tend to be low on, that completely tracks with our geology here, that we don't have limestone-based soil. And I know I found in some of my work, some of the unusual contaminants I worked with were not unusual in parts of the country where limestone prevailed. So all the research had to do with that kind of soil, and it had nothing to do with what was going on here. So that's kind of why I asked the question of locally, you know, our geology is different from, say, a lot of the Midwest where the big farms are. So anyway, very interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sarah, sounds like you should get on the board.
Well, it's a very tiny little piece of what's going on, but I zero in on, you know, my little questions.
All right.
In an effort to be respectful at a time, I just wanted to say two things real quick. One is that there's two things that if you guys don't know, if you're really looking for just a walk, the farm is fantastic for that. You can show up, you can see the animals, you can walk past the forest gnomes, and then you can walk all the way out to the aqueduct. So you can actually get a really nice long walk in. You don't have to think of the farm as just a small little space to walk. You can enjoy the area and then also walk out past the forest gnomes and get a really nice long walk in there. And then I just also would like to tie it back into the mission. So the mission is the education, and I would like to just point out that even though we're not kids, we just got an education from these guys as adults talking about the farming. And so it really did tie into all of the mission here. And I'm beyond grateful that you guys came and gave your time today. And I will say that I really enjoyed the pick your own this morning. And I thought people were going to show up today because you guys all normally come, but you didn't. But so I'll just point out that I had some snap peas for everybody to enjoy. As you notice, you can eat them whole or you can open them up and have the peas. I have a really nice, it's actually a gorgeous head of Boston bib, some red leaf. I have beets in case anybody is curious what they look like when they come out of the ground. And then also some nice green leaf and romaine that I have for everybody today, but that's okay. So I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for coming. I'm really beyond grateful. We didn't talk about the accessibility, but I can say that the board agreed to purchase a accessibility bike. So we're hoping to work with the senior center and some other people so that we can provide a little more opportunity to people who normally can't get out there to come and have an opportunity to ride through the farm instead of having to walk.
Wow. Well, that sounds exciting too. And yes, let me echo your thanks to the farm, Brinley. This has been super interesting even though everybody on the introduction said, oh yeah, I know the farm, I'm there all the time. I think we all learned a lot and are more excited to come and visit in the future. So again, thank you so much for your time and spending it with us today. And as Cindy said, 2 weeks from today, we will be hearing about another farming operation, and because specifically of the immigrant population, I think that's in the crazy country that we live in now. That is why they've requested, and we're of course honoring that we will not be making a recording of that. But if at all possible, please join, because I think that's going to be a pretty powerful and interesting story. Next week, we're going to meet another local artist. A few weeks back, or a month or two, we met Rob Dunlovey, who did all that artistry down at the Natick Dam. If anybody happened to notice those giant poems on the lawn of the First Congregational Church over the last couple of weeks, next week we're going to meet the artist who did not write those poems, but brought those poems to public display and has a lot of other artistry of his own and very interesting life story. Tom Gilligan will be meeting with us. So I think that wraps us up for this morning.
Thank you,
It's been
everybody.
great. Thank you so much. And